David Tarsh is at home to his friends. It's a happy, rip-roaring occasion.
All gentlemen, please be upstanding. Professor Back. Get off your seats.
After a memorable dinner in a suite of rooms that are the envy of queens, David and friends will top out their splendid evening at the Trinity May Ball, where others of Cambridge's smart set will dance until the wee small hours.
Being left-wing, I don't approve of it, but it's very hard to say that and reconcile that with actually being here and being part of this rat race that I don't approve of, because I really think kind of Cambridge and Oxford and this kind of public school university kind of type system shouldn't exist.
Perfectly correct. So there's no democracy. Is there any genuine opposition to Stalin, do you think, during the 1920s? And I really mean genuine opposition.
I think there is.
Would you use opposition with inverted commas?
Yes.
Why?
Because opposition wasn't allowed within the party.
Well, yes, quite. All the potential opponents are nevertheless perfectly loyal Bolsheviks. There is a good reason, after all, who created the Red Army.
Trotsky.
Not Stalin. You agree? Yes?
Yeah, it was Trotsky. But fortunately for them, Trotsky never actually mobilised the potential support he could
Rather
have.
lost his chances,
Yeah, he
Yes.
could have on several occasions.
Hmm.
Because he had quite a lot of support amongst people in the party and people outside the party,
Yeah.
rather than the party bureaucracy, which is what Stalin had.
Yes, I think that's perfectly true. Now tell me some more about Stalin and his background, compared, say...
Mary Browning was at Laurel Bank, a fee-paying girls' school in Glasgow. She spent 1 year at Glasgow University reading French and Russian before moving to Queen's and Cambridge. She's in her second year, and the supervisor of her Russian studies at the Department of Modern and Medieval Languages is Dr. Peter Squires.
Well, he certainly had some Oriental characteristics. And what would you describe them as being, insofar as they're related to Stalin?
Ruthlessness.
Ruthlessness, certainly, yes.
But still terribly elitist, and the university doesn't seem to do a lot to try and change that, even though it's kind of been doing a little to try and get more women and more people from comprehensives or grammar schools mostly to come here. It still is terribly elitist. Everybody seems to think that teaching and education here are a much higher standard than anywhere else, which isn't true at all. In fact, teaching in a lot of subjects is a much lower standard.
A year of chemistry at Oxford convinced David Tarsh that he was cut out for law at Cambridge. He's in his second year at Queen's.
Ah, hello. Could I speak to the High Master, please?
On the telephone that he and his roommate have had especially installed, David puts a call through to his old public school, St. Paul's. He's due to deliver his maiden speech at the Union in a short while, and he wishes to pick the High Master's brains on a ticklish topic.
Hello, Mr. Hill. How are you? Yes, I really want to ring you up and thank you very much indeed for all this bump your secretary sent me. It's fantastic. It's very good indeed. There's something I'd like to ask you, actually, because I was talking to my brother last night, and he said that in the Oxbridge classes they've been doing at St. Paul's, he came up with a statistic that Mr. Thompson had given them, that St. Paul's actually took on some people from care and educated them because it cost the council less to do so. Is that something I shouldn't mention, though? The first point is to establish.
Fortified with St. Paul's bump and Queen's College sherry, David Tarsh dresses and prepares his debut using roommate Martin Feldman as a sounding board.
Jesus, I can't remember a thing. I'm panicking.
Perhaps what you should do is go for what you think the opposition is going to say.
I know, I've got an argument. I can do that.
What is the heart of their argument?
I don't. Their argument.
It's easy. Don't you wish you were on the other side?
Yeah.
So?
Real credit if we can't win a public school motion at Cambridge University.
David has 1 hour to prepare his speech opposing a motion hostile to private education in Britain.
This is not the first time you've spoken at the Union. I'm not sure why you're getting so excited about it.
It's quite nerve-wracking.
But certainly not one of the most difficult debates you've done.
It's not easy. It's really
A
not.
past master like you, David, there should be no problems.
Yes, but I always get terribly drunk before I start because I can't actually remember what I'm doing. It's a disaster. Right. I've got to... The idea. 3 themes. 3 themes.
Who are the people on the other side?
I don't know.
Who's speaking first?
I don't know. I haven't a clue who they are at all. I don't know at all. I actually haven't told you, have I?
You haven't.
Right.
It's my questions that are worrying you, isn't it?
No, I'm not clear. I'm not mentally clear. Argument. Number 1 is to establish the fact that it is completely impossible to get equality of opportunity.
Still missing 3 of them.
On the same evening, Mary Browning is also preparing to confront the foe.
Oh,
I just got the bike round the side.
yeah, sure, you were nearly too late.
Mary is organiser for Cambridge CND, the town, not just the university.
Where's the sherry gone?
David, are you listening to me? This is something quite important here. A professor from the private schools paper issued by the Labour Party, Professor Halsey of Oxford claims that given their highly selective intake and superior resources, many private schools, as well as many grammar schools, could be regarded as a failure, David, on the basis of their examination pass rates. What would you have to say about that?
The whole benefit in private education is that it is completely eclectic and that the private... Oh, shit.
That is still not an excuse for why public schools do so well.
The public schools... Oh, I know what I'm saying. The whole point is that the feature behind private schools that is so excellent is that they exploit the benefits and talents of their individual pupils, come whatever they may be. Now, the whole problem tonight is, I mean, that's obviously what happens in public schools, is that you've got the ethos and the attitude.
Well, can't one argue that those talents are in the comprehensive schools anyway? And in fact, all the public schools do is take the examinations and prevent people who don't have the talents getting in.
Sorry?
David, I think you're going to be confronted with lots of anti-public school people at the union this evening, and you're going to have to perhaps have more prompt answers.
Yes.
Particularly individuals in, generally will be jumping up and down as points of information.
It's an important evening in David Tarsh's life.
The point about public schools. I'm not organising my thoughts at all.
I think another drink, David. This is what you need without a doubt.
Yes, I'm feeling very nervous.
Yeah.
He's been given his big chance by making an impression on the union president with some promising speeches from the floor.
Cheers. Bloody hell. It's a bit excessive. I'm going to be so smashed by the time I get up tonight. If anything like last time yesterday, it's quite appalling. The point is, my thing here is original. I hope. This is what
is the crux
This
of
is
the
what I was screaming
originality?
about last night, right? Is that what I am putting into this evening, the thread behind it, which is mine and is different, is that I want to attack. Actually, I don't know if it is different.
Well, this is it.
But anyway, I want to attack the idea that the sole criterion for good education is academic success. That is the key message I want to hit it.
But isn't that academic success very necessary today?
Complete.
With
No,
such
it's a
a
complete
primacy on jobs.
misconception. You see, this is what has gone absolutely wrong with education in Britain, is the idea that academic success is the only thing that matters.
Yes,
and it's fundamentally not, because you see what's around education and what happens when you get into the big wide world and you do a job. This is the point.
Yes, but the problem is there's a finite number of places at universities for an infinite number of students. Now, no better solution, no better system has been
Yes,
prearranged.
we had it in Oxford and Cambridge and we lost it. That's the whole point of the thing, is to cope with
But
this.
if you look at the talents that
No,
exist in
because
Oxford and
basically,
Cambridge,
look, what is Oxford and Cambridge setting out to do? Oxford and Cambridge are setting out,
to create the best.
the best
David,
of
to
what?
see
What
the
is
best of the
what is
academic
best?
world, the best of the sporting world,
right,
the
best of
theatrical world,
right. Right. Sporting, academic, theatrical.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to have those all coming in here, right? When basically you're having such a stringent entrance criterion on academics that all they're going to be able to do to get in is to gnaw away in the libraries. They'll never be able to get in unless they're boring swats.
In Glasgow.
Uplifted by a tape of anti-nuclear songs, Mary Browning and Cambridge CND are on a 24-hour vigil in sympathy with the Greenham women. Their target is RAF Alconbury, which they suspect is earmarked for cruise missiles.
Perhaps the most important issue this evening is Laura Chapman-Jury going to be there.
Are you coming in?
You know how I feel about her.
I know.
Of course I'll be there.
I don't know what you see in her at all.
David, thank goodness we don't think the same way about our women.
Well, we did, Sarah.
Do I respond to that or not?
No, she's incredibly attractive, you know.
Well, she was.
She still is.
Well, that's debatable. You want me to kneel?
No.
I will have to learn at some stage, won't I?
David's roommate, Martin Feldman, is already a graduate of Witwatersrand University, and this is his final year at Queen's.
How many times do you think you've done this now?
Too many.
David Tarsh's parents have motored up from London hoping to witness their son's triumph. A generation earlier, Mr. Tarsh was an undergraduate at Clare College, Cambridge. Today he runs a coach tour company and travel agency. With him is David's younger brother, who's still at St. Paul's, and Mrs. Tarsh, with 2 new shirts to give to her older son. Few at Cambridge University naively suppose that success in later life will depend on academic success alone. Here at the Union and in the political clubs, an undergraduate with brilliant forensic skill or mastery in argument may, through the contacts he makes and the eyes he catches, lay the foundation of a successful political career. These apprentice orators are treading in the steps of R.A. Butler, Selwyn Lloyd, and the current Foreign Secretary. Entries to this exclusive club will cost an undergraduate £20 a year and £35 for life at today's prices.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 10th debate of the term. Before we begin, I have a few announcements to make. First of all, I'd remind you that tomorrow night we have 3 live bands in the cellar, including, I'm informed, Gigglestick and the Love Truncheons. So I hope that you'll all go along to that. And we now move to the main business before the House. The motion is that private schools have no place in the long-term future of education in Britain. Mr. Jeremy Oppenheim will propose. Very much for his speech, and with equal pleasure call Mr. Andrew Loney, Magdalen College Secretary and Birthday Boy, to oppose the motion.
Mr. President, sir, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that kind introduction. I thought I may be asked to wear a birthday suit when I arrived, so I must be thankful for small mercies. If there's anything that we do agree on both sides of the House, I think, and throughout the Chamber, it is on the importance of education as investment for the future, and that our education system should be designed to bring out the full potential of every individual. that we should be concerned with providing the very best.
There are 8 speakers, 3 on each side from the students and 2 from opposing distinguished guests. John Ray, then headmaster of Westminster School, and Doug McEvoy, Deputy General Secretary of the NUT.
He talked about 1984, and I very much think that we will be that much.
I went to a private school largely because my parents had the money. Not that private schools are not selective. The very term private means restricted access to certain persons only.
I'm not an astrologer, and I don't really feel confident to say that private schools have a place in the future. I'm here to say that I hope they have, and they should have.
I recognise that many members here tonight will have been themselves educated in private schools. All I can ask is that if you do believe in the principle of equal opportunity, if you do believe that individuals are all essentially entitled to those same possibilities within our education system, then you will support this motion tonight. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I beg to propose.
Now it's David Tarsh's turn. He's the 6th speaker, which could be tricky, for he'll have to react to the speakers that have gone before and to improvise.
And now it's with great pleasure that I call Mr. David Tarsh of Queen's College to speak 6th and against the motion.
The most important thing when you're in the education of a child and his performance at school is the background of his parents. If he's got parents who are keen and dedicated to the well-being of the child's education, then that child will almost certainly do well regardless of what school he is in. Now, I want to put it to people like Mr. Moxon that it is quite impossible to abolish private education. We can't abolish private education because we believe in certain freedoms. We believe in the freedoms to choose an education for our children. We believe in freedoms to educate our children in conformity with our religious beliefs. And we believe in freedoms to spend our money, if we have that much money, on our children's education, if we so desire. And I think it's very wrong that if you have worked all your life, if you are a father, and you have put your back into your hard-earned work, you put your back into working hard so that you've got a lot of money, then it should be quite right and quite fair that you should be able to invest in your children. And it seems to me wrong that one should stop people from doing that. Now, if you look at a legal opinion that has been done by Anthony Lester QC, has been backed up by Lord Simon of Glaisdale, their report is such that if we were to try to abolish private education in Britain, this would be legislation that would be struck down by the European Court of Human Rights. So what we would be doing would be illegal. But let's say even if we could get round that problem and we could abolish private education, you would still have the difficulty of dealing with the keen and interested parents. And what those parents would do is they would simply employ tutors, they would simply send their children abroad to school, or they would move into the neighbourhood where the best schools were. So what I want to put across to you is that abolition is simply not on. Now, the misconception is that the sole criterion for a good education is academic success. And I think that we're suffering very strongly from that in Cambridge. You see, what happens in Cambridge is that we have to be terribly bright to get in. We have to be very hard-working to pass the exams, and when we're here we have to be very hard-working. And what suffers are the extracurricular activities, the quality of speaking in the union. Just think, if we didn't have to work quite so hard, the standard of speaking would be much higher. Now, there's one other great thing that I see that is a benefit in private schooling, and that is the opportunity and scope for innovation and pioneering. The private schools are innovating, they are helping the education system in Britain to grow, they are helping the pursuit of excellence, not simply in academics, but right across the board. And this is where I see the whole benefit in private schools. And therefore, honourable members, this is the reason why I think we should vote on this side of the motion. We should encourage the innovation, and please, will you oppose the motion?
The union societies are really, really bad. It's kind of would be laughable if it wasn't such a kind of sick joke. It's all terribly kind of perpetuating the public school, let's play at being politicians and rule the world. And I don't know, I find it really, really horrible. And the sad thing is that kind of the people that revel in that when they're here do go on to kind of rule the country. You go from here into Parliament, and that's just wonderful. And also the way people outside Cambridge and outside Oxford see that as representative of what students here think. For example, they're always televising debates and things, and they're not even open debates. You can't go along to them unless you pay your £18 to be a member. So it gives, I don't know, a totally wrong idea of kind of your average Cambridge person.
Really, I think that was one of the best speeches I've heard you make. On the other side, any of their arguments.
You then turn around and you ask them what do you remember, and they remember nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I thought that was very good. I enjoyed it.
David, you made the best of a bad job.
Thanks, Charles.
Bad job. I'm not sure you were speaking on the right side of the motion. I think you should have been from the crossbenches.
I would have loved to have seen everybody.
I got the impression that you believed what you were saying.
I was very excited.
I was on the right side.
Yeah, perhaps.
The news this morning is that anti-nuclear demonstrators are taking part in a 24-hour vigil outside American bases and other installations throughout Britain. In Lebanon, there are conflicting reports about whether Mr. Yasser Arafat's last major position has fallen to his opponents. Two leading Irish Republicans have been found guilty in New York State of trying to enter America illegally. The Leader Express on the Old Bailey trial of two brothers who pleaded not guilty to kidnapping a wealthy couple from their home of Bromley in Kent. A third man has admitted the charge. The Express says the court heard how encouraged from his
Well, got to go back, get cleaned up so it doesn't look like I've been at a peace camp all night, and trot into a little room with another girl and the supervisor and read out an essay on, what is it, 1905 revolution. Just like I'd never been doing anything else except sleeping in my wee bed all night.
Cambridge undergraduates have a lot of freedom. Lectures are not compulsory by and large, and students can do as much or as little work as they please. But most face examinations at the end of each year, and if they fail these, they can be asked to leave. But there's a climax to every week in the 8-week term, one appointment in the diary that cannot be ignored. The hour-long supervision where pupil meets teacher for guidance, assessment, advice and tuition.
You want some coffee then?
Please.
Right. I'm never going to make it to the supervision.
I'm going to push you there.
You'll need to, else I'll fall asleep or something. And Dr. Square would not be terribly amused.
Would you sleep all the way through the supervision?
I can't, I'll have to translate things into Russian. And
Let him do the
things.
talking.
Every so often he says, right, translate that, and I never can anyway, but I'll not be any good at it today. Every so often he does rant though about nothing in particular, writing things on the back of pictures and Stalin and the likes. I mean, it's all terribly right-wing and everything, and you've got to be very anti absolutely anything just because it's called Soviet Union, stuff like that. You just sit there not knowing what to say, going, aye, fine. I don't know. He's a loony, he really is. Milk.
Тогда возьмите же это.
Спасибо.
Хорошо? Мы дошли до, если я правильно помню, если бы не знал хорошо, из долгого опыта, and Mary, из долгого опыта is not terribly difficult.
From long experience.
And from long experience, and in, что ни тех, ни других в нашем государственном устройстве просто не существует. No difficulty about the verb. What price ни тех, и других. Because that's something that's worth having. You see what it means literally, don't you?
Yeah, neither these nor others.
Yes, but you wouldn't write that in English.
Mm.
Neither the former nor the latter, all right? There's simply no place for either in our state system. So far, so good? Yes? Mary, at the beginning of the next paragraph, the words between inverted commas present no difficulty because they're the same words as English. You agree? All right? But what about the two adjectives that precede them? Either as regards the meaning. Claire?
Does prenuptiality mean something to do with constrained, restrained?
Of course it does. Yes? Принуждение being the noun, all right? And therefore obligatory or compulsory. Yes? What about оскорбительный, which is a different idea? What did you say? Accursed? Проклятый. No, it's not accursed, but you've seen something, I think, Mary?
Oh, I know it.
Оскорбление? Оскорбление. Если бы я вас оскорблял.
It's quite clearly the case from what your supervisor has to say that there is room for improvement on the application side. It's really a matter of how much time you can find to do the work.
Well, how is your day going to break down?
Well, at the moment I'm going through the notes, trying to learn them.
But how long?
Well, this is the thing. I'm not sure.
You're sure that you get up in the morning?
Oh yes. I'm working quite a lot. Probably 10 hours a day. The thing is that it just seems
You're
like...
actually thinking 10 hours a day?
Well, I don't think anyone can think consistently for 10 hours a day with the moments that go well for the, you know, the few seconds, however hard you try. But I'm doing my best. What would you recommend?
Well, I recommend, of course, that you do more work. I recommend that you work more efficiently. All the things one usually says. Don't make too many notes so that you haven't got time to read them.
Well, this is the thing I've got at the moment. The thing is, it's taking what seems to me an awfully long time to get to know what's there. Like this morning, it took me more than this morning to revise off an acceptance. And when I think that's one chapter, it's rather daunting, in fact, depressing. But
I hope you had a good vacation. No.
Yes, well, I wasn't completely idle in the vacation. I got a bet on with my father, who was one of these people up in Cambridge who worked all the time. And he said, if you work hard, I'll lose £2 a week in weight. So I thought this was terribly unfair because it was a pushover to lose £2 a week in weight, particularly when you're as fat as he is. And he said, well, 45 hours was a pushover, particularly when you work as hard as he does, so it was a bit of a shame.
Professor Derek Bowett, QC, is a former president of Queen's, a practicing barrister at the International Bar, and part responsible for David Tarsh's higher education.
You can't write as much as that in an examination. You realise that?
Yes.
So you're really going to have to boil that down a little bit.
So far, David's academic ride at Queen's has been bumpy. He got a third after his first year, and his prospects at the end of the second year are just as bad. To satisfy his father and the Dons, he'll have to do better. His target is an upper, or at least a lower second.
That's not bad. In fact, you people did that on the whole better than the other group because you got more of the antitrust problem in, instead of giving a general essay on jurisdiction. You're going to argue this for the claimant, is that right?
This collective supervision for law students is called a moot. It's a mock trial in which David Tarsh will argue for a foreign company whose premises have been ransacked by Ruritanian students.
With respect to the manager and the property, we would contend that there has been a denial of justice because in the facts of this particular case, the country has not taken appropriate steps to deal with the students who have taken over the buildings. And if there is a denial of justice, then again the rule about exhaustion of remedies does not apply.
Don't cite authorities which are not actually authorities for the proposition that you're making. Because that's in fact going to cause you a great deal of damage. Your reply to that, Robin, was somewhat political and emotional. It was a good political speech, but not as full of law as it might have been. I mean, your argument on opposing restitution was fair enough. Let's get down to more serious matters. What I didn't think you'd finish ahead of time. I take people usually go on much longer than that.
Oh no, I didn't.
But did you find that you actually learned the stuff better since you had to, as it were?
I found I learned the stuff that I had to argue on. The stuff that David had to argue on, I didn't learn better.
Oh, well, that's a mistake. Because you remember I told you what.
I mean, I did look at it.
I'm not going to give up on this because last year I did very badly in the exams, and I want to be able to prove to myself that if I can't do the law, it's because I'm not clever enough to do the law, not because I'm too idle. So there's got to be a reasonable amount of work done.
Do you think that is a possibility?
That I'm not clever enough? Yes, I'm quite worried.
I really don't know what I'm going to do when I leave here. I doubt actually if anyone will want to employ me. And there's so few jobs around anyway. It seems like most people now are either sitting civil service exams and becoming civil servants, else they cop out and do a computing course. And I don't want to do either of them. But I'd also like to do something that kind of is politically active, political papers or in feminist groups or whatever, things like that. It all depends on who you know, especially in London. And I don't know anybody in London, so I really don't know.
The thing that I'm interested in at the moment actually is advertising. Because the last holidays I thought, it's possible I won't make it at law. And so I filled in I went to see one of the careers people at the careers place and filled in a form. I said, look, these are the things I enjoy. I enjoy organising, I enjoy socialising. I want to have a job that includes them. I put these things down as the priorities, and when they analysed it, I got the computer results back. And it put number one, I should be an account executive at an advertising agency.
The Senate House, and the last day of David Tarsh's exams in the second leg of his tripos. It was also the last day of roommate Martin Feldman's final examination before leaving Cambridge.
Martin, do you want to finish it?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Oh.
I don't want to. How was it?
Great, absolute total. Yeah, got a couple of bottles. It was really nice. Yeah, go on. Oh, that was the nicest paper I've had in ages.
I did my best. There's 4 questions I could do, and then one I really scrounged for. And you know what happened? I came out afterwards, and someone said, "Why did you take? What about that tenures question?" I said, "Where were the letters?"
Oh, I don't.
Is it on the back of the paper?
David,
who's interested now? We don't care what happened in your papers. They're over. Exactly. I mean, this is, you know, a taboo subject.
10 days later, Martin and David wait for the law results to be posted outside the Senate House.
I'm waiting for modern languages as well, actually, because I lost my
scared,
friend. Well, everybody is, Martin. Everybody is. Look around you. That's the problem, you know. It could be that some people, it's their life in the balance, you know.
You know what's so ridiculous? With a lot of these people, they're standing around waiting to find out whether they've got jobs next year, or whether they've got a place at bar school, or whether they've... I mean, they're important things. Hang on, this is not just a case of, well, it's nice to get out.
5 lists in alphabetical order. Class 1, 2-1, 2-2, 3, and failed.
Would you be squashed yet?
Yes, they
If we get the special, the special, exactly. We're on for it.
You go get your results.
Yeah, look, I'll do it.
I'll go and have a quick
Hang on.
No, you've got to let David go first.
No, I really don't want to see.
I'll go and have a look.
I'm certainly not going to scrummage through this lot.
Which board will it be at?
I might that one over there. Whether 12.
Martin Feldman is expecting good news. He can scarcely believe his eyes.
Who knows?
Where'd you go?
Good shot.
Third?
He'd expected a 2-1.
I know what you got.
Really? Now, why don't you tell me?
You don't want to know, do you?
Well, I'd be quite interested to know. I just don't want to scrummage. This is the trouble.
I'm not going to tell you.
Go from the third to a first. Very impressive.
You do this well.
Oh, Christ. I'm giving up. Have a drink. Have a drink.
Yeah.
David, we got through. We got through.
At least we're here next year.
We're here. We're solid.
Here next year.
Solid performance.
Let's see what the other queens think.
Go and have a look. Go, yeah.
David Tarsh has squeaked by for another year with a third.
May be upstanding for a toast to...
So, what has happened to Mary Browning and David Tarsh in the last year? Mary Browning, who's not a guest at this private dinner, is taking a year off as paid president of Cambridge University Students' Union, a job that'll stand her in good stead if she opts for a political career. David Tarsh is a trainee account executive for Saatchi & Saatchi.
Just a few. I would like to propose a toast.
No, hang on.
Please, don't interrupt. We can't all talk at once. I'd like to propose a toast to another university. I myself am a graduate thereof. I ask you to raise your glasses to Oxford University.
I'm with you, Steve. To the Latin Quarter of the Cowley Motorworks. To that.